Thank you for coming on this.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So if you want to start, just say your name and your star
Mhm.
sign and where you're
Mhm.
based and what you do.
Yeah, my name's Christina Kreitel. I am a Cancer, and I am in the Rocky Mountains of northern Utah in the United States. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
And
yeah.
what is your job?
I am an herbalist. So I actually started a company with my best friend in the whole world 3 years, oh, I guess 4 years ago in 2021.
Yeah.
And just after everything that went down in 2020, especially here in America, pharmaceuticals really tried to take over the world. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And we're both holistic moms who were able to heal ourselves and our kids using herbs and food. And what
Wow.
we were seeing just drove us nuts. And we're like, we're this enough. Like, we're not doing this anymore. And so we set out on a mission to show people like everything you need is already here. And these beautiful plant allies are like literally here and can heal and cure everything. And it all comes down to food. And so we've just been doing that since, like teaching people the difference between fake food and real food. And you don't need drugs. You can do everything. Like, it's all here.
Yeah,
Everything is
beautiful
magic.
magic.
It's been great.
Yeah. So have you always worked in that sort of area?
No, I was a hairstylist for 13 years. And I traveled all over the world for it. So, yeah, I went all over. I taught personal branding for beauticians, teaching them how to stand out in an oversaturated market. And I was a color and extension specialist. And so I taught my techniques all over. And then 2020 happened, and 2020 was like that catalyst. And I like quit, and I was just like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore, and
I love
completely redirected and became a whole new person. And yeah, and that's really when I like finally stepped into, you know what? I'm sick of hiding in the broom closet. This is
Yeah.
BS. Like, I'm gonna start
That's another question
studying.
I was going to ask you.
Uh-huh. Yep. Well,
You use the word
yeah.
witch?
Yep. Well, I wasn't brave enough to use the word witch or priestess or any of that stuff until this last year, until 2024. I've always felt very connected ever since I was a kid, like Harry Potter. Like, why do you think I love you so much? I was like, she's like Molly Weasley. I'm so happy. Like, I love it. But I always, I grew up in the 90s. So it was Sabrina the
Yeah.
Teenage Witch, and it was
Yeah.
like Harry Potter. And I grew
Yeah.
up with Harry Potter. Like, the fifth book came
Yeah.
out when I turned
Lovely.
15, 6, 16.
Mm.
And but I also grew up in a very, very strict religious household. And so everything that I innately was so in love with and attracted to was considered sinful. And so it was a very long and terrifying process to deconstruct from all of that and get to the
Yeah.
point now where I can like stand in who I am without fear or shame.
Let's dig
And
into
so,
that. I love
yeah,
this. This is
yeah.
great. This is really, really good. So, what was there? Was there like something that made you go, right, I need to actually look at this word witch, or was it
Mhm.
remembrance, or was it like, actually, I'm gonna claim this?
It has been something that I've always known, always had. And I knew that witch, it was so much more than that. Like, we're all witches. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, if you're a female, you're a witch, whether you like it or not.
Great. Yeah.
Which is great. But like going through the etymology of the word and like how, like what happened, and then finally being brave enough to like look into, okay, why do I get like these feelings and these memories that don't make any sense?
Yeah.
Like they never have. When I went to England and Scotland for the first time, Ireland, all over there, when I was in Edinburgh, I was walking down the street. I'd never been there. And out of nowhere, I was like, I know where I am. There's a cemetery over there. There was a shop over here. There was this. And all my friends are looking at me like, what are you talking about? I'm like, guys, I swear. And I had remembered something I'd never experienced. And
Mm,
so it's
that.
just been things like that my whole life. Like as a kid, I was very aware of things, but told I was crazy. I was obsessed with my Harry Potter books. And there was this moment where I wanted to be well, at that time it was books on tape, right? So I
Yeah.
wanted to be a books on tape reader, an audible reader, and my teacher offered me extra credit to read my favorite book out loud and practice it because I was like, is this a job? She's like, yeah. And so I grabbed, of course, my favorite book and I started reading Harry Potter out loud as I'm recording it on like a tape recorder, right?
Oh, how
And
fun.
my parents found it And instead of asking me what I was doing, they thought that I had taken my obsession to a whole nother level where I couldn't just be satisfied with reading the books. I had to listen to myself reading the books. And so that created a whole thing. And
Right.
so it's just been a lot of like, no, I'm not crazy. There's a reason I'm attracted to this. Why do I remember and why do I feel so good about something that I've been taught is a sin?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so it wasn't until 2020, it's a whole story. My child was, will be a little controversial. My child was vaccine injured, and
Mhm.
I figured that out. And he
How
was
old is your
deaf.
children? Sorry, how
It
old is your
was
children?
my oldest is 7 now.
Mm.
At the time he was 4 when I finally figured this out.
Okay.
And when I got canceled over this for bringing this up and for trying to figure out how to detox him. And so that's why I quit my career and everything. And that was the moment where I was finally like, oh, I'm done. Like I'm done conforming. I'm
How did you
done
get
doing what's
cancelled?
righteous.
What happened to you? What did your friends tell you?
Oh boy, we're like opening up all the cans of
Yeah,
worms,
why
aren't we?
not?
I'm here for
Yeah.
it.
It's a safe place.
So it's safe place, safe place. And my story is important. Like it
Yeah.
is. Um, so in 2020, I was really big in the hair industry, like in the beauty industry. I was the face of a couple companies. Can't say what companies they were because I signed non-disclosures.
Mhm.
Anyway, so I was the face of a couple really big companies. I traveled all over the world teaching. I hit the glass ceiling kind of a thing, which
Yeah.
was great. And I'm so grateful for that. I learned a
Mm.
lot. But then 2020 happened. And do you remember? I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you got all the news of what was happening here over there.
A little bit. I don't
But
really watch the news, so a little.
good. It's the worst. Don't watch the news.
I don't watch normal TV. I'm constantly
Nope.
watching shows or Harry Potter or
Same,
19
same.
Teenage. Yeah,
Same. I'm like, I'm not interested in this reality because it's all a lie anyway. So,
it's gonna be
um,
amazing.
so there were a lot of fires, a lot of wildfires that were happening on the
Right.
West Coast, right? So
Mhm.
California, Oregon, all of that. And I had friends out there. And had friends who were seeing people setting the fires. They weren't, some of them were wildfires, but most of them were actually arson at the time.
Okay.
And I was on social and I had a really big, I mean, I have a big following now, but I had a really big following at the time. And I came across a video of a man who looked just like my husband, who's a big bear, he's just big, manly man,
Mhm.
like farmer, right? And
Mhm.
so this man, he's crying. So I start crying because if a manly man is
Yeah,
crying, you cry
yeah,
too.
then you're
That's
gonna
what
cry.
happens.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
definitely.
And so, yeah. And he's crying because he has video footage of people wearing Antifa, wearing Black Lives Matter gear, setting fire to his farm. And they lit his animals on fire and then let them loose and it burned down his entire farm. He was a farmer. Like this was
Oh,
not a rich dude.
goodness.
And he's not crying because he lost everything. He's crying because his wife is pregnant and due to have a baby in 2 weeks. And he has no place to bring her home. And they got out with one of their dogs. The rest of them died. The rest
Oh
of them
my
all burned
God,
alive.
that's
I
just
know. Can you imagine your little puppy?
yeah,
Oh,
that's
so they got out with their toddler, his pregnant wife, the clothes on their back, and one of their dogs. And she raises and trains dogs that help military with post-traumatic stress. So it was
wow.
like even worse.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so I am 1 month away from giving birth to my youngest. So of course this triggers me bad. And
yeah.
I'm like, what is the
Emotional wreck.
point?
Yeah,
Right? And I'm like, what is the point of having this following if I can't help? I had no
yeah.
idea who these people were.
Hmm.
So I went through his followers, tracked down a couple of his friends, found his Venmo, shared his story on my social, shared his Venmo, and then all hell broke loose. So some random girl, still to this day, I don't know who she is, but if I ever see her, I'm going to kiss her full on the mouth because this toxic, angry woman changed my life and
Yeah.
was literally like, she
Mhm.
was that point
Mhm.
that forced me to go, no, I'm not doing this anymore. At the time, I didn't feel that way. But yeah, there's been a lot of healing around this
Send her love.
situation.
Send her
So
love.
all the love and light. Yes, I hope she's doing so
So
well.
grateful. Yeah.
Yep, I'm so grateful for her now. But she screenshot my story and changed the words on my story. And she changed the words and made it sound like I was blaming the wildfires on Black Lives Matter. And I'm like, I literally have Black people in my family, like married in, like
Oh
my niece is Black. Like, are you kidding? Right?
my
And so I'm like,
God.
so that went viral and I got labeled a racist and a fascist. I lost both of my contracts within 24 hours over a rumor and a lie. I
Oh
got
my
death
God.
threats. Half my following gone. Got death threats. People, it was terrifying. It
So
was
which
awful.
one? Hmm.
Yeah. So I lost a high six-figure income doing hair
Oh my
3 days
God.
a week in 24 hours over a rumor and a lie. It
I
was
can't
crazy.
believe that.
It was crazy. 2 days after, my son, so one day, he was brilliant, was my oldest. He was absolutely brilliant. When he was born, he was just, everyone's like, you got to check this kid's IQ out. Like, he's like that kid. And I had had infertility issues for 6 years beforehand. So when I finally got him, he was like my angel, like, oh,
Yeah.
everything, it was all worth it to finally get
Yeah.
him, you know? And I
Mm.
got pregnant with him right after I got home from Europe. And I was like, is it the food? Like, is that why I finally got pregnant? Is because the food is real food? Turns out it was. And that's what led me down the path that I'm on now, because I'm just like, is our food fake? Is our food poison? Yes, it is. And so that's why I'm like on the mission I'm on to now.
Mm.
And anyway, so I got home, had him. He's beautiful. He's perfect. And then I take him because I'm a good mom, right? I'm a good mom. And I take my kid to the doctor. Like, that's what you do. And I took him in, and he woke up the next day and my child was gone. And he was replaced. We used to say he had dead shark eyes because he would just look at you, and it was just, you ever been scared of a 3-year-old, like of a 2-year-old? Yeah, it was awful. And he became very violent. He went completely deaf. He went completely nonverbal, went from saying like 30 words to nothing overnight, and proceeded to just scream for the next 2.5 years. It was awful. There was 2 points. I walked in on him smothering his sister at one point. Have you ever seen a 3-year-old punch a hole in a wall? Yeah. Like, I was like, I couldn't figure out what was going on. I was just like, why is this happening to me? Of course, I blame myself. Like, oh, maybe I was never meant to be a mom. Maybe that's why the infertility, like all those doubts, right? And everyone's telling me, Christina, he's autistic. He's autistic. And I'm like, look, if he's really autistic, give me the puzzle sticker. I will be like chief queen of the autism parade, man. Like, I will, but it's not. And I had this knowing. I just knew. And it's that knowing that I've always been called crazy for.
Yeah.
And every time I ignore it, all hell breaks loose, right? But when we listen, everything
Very
works
fun.
out, right?
Exactly.
So so I kept this quiet. Like, I'm a public figure in my industry, but nobody really knew what was going on behind closed doors. I was terrified that, yeah, I was terrified Child Protective Services would take him away if they found out just how awful, and somehow it was my fault. And so fast forward, right? All this stuff happened, lose my career, like all this, it's terrifying. I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm the main breadwinner. Like, what's going to happen?
Mm.
And I 2 days after all this went down, we had finally gotten him into the #1 preschool in our state, and they were their whole program was for kids with severe autism, right? And we couldn't figure out what it was, so we thought it was that. And he had been in for 2 weeks, and they called me and they said, Christina, you have to unenroll John. He's too much. We are not equipped to handle a child as violent as your child. We can't, like, this is 2 days after I lose my entire career, right? And so I'm going in like, great, like, this is like wonderful. Obviously, I'm being nonchalant about it now, but it was awful. So I
Must
go
be.
and it was horrible. So
Yeah.
I go and I pick him up, and I need to find this woman and like give her 100 roses because she changed everything. One of the aides pulled me aside because talking about vaccines is a very, very taboo subject, right? Which is dumb. We should talk about things. Your
Yeah. It's
opinions,
still
like
isn't
everyone have your
legally.
opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we should be
Yeah.
able to talk about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so she pulls me aside and she goes, Christina, I'll never forgive myself if I don't tell you this. I don't think John has autism. And I started to cry because she was the first person in my life who agreed. My parents didn't agree.
Yeah.
My
Matt.
siblings didn't agree. My husband, like everyone was like, Christina, you're in denial. You're embarrassed because you have a special needs kid. And I was like, is today the day you decided to die? Like, really? You want to tell me that? And she pulls me aside and she said, Christina, I don't think he has autism. I think it's heavy metal poisoning. And I'm like, what's that? What's heavy metal poisoning? I didn't know anything about health. I'm
Yeah.
like dealing with thyroid problems. I'm pre-diabetic at this point. I'm 100 pounds heavier than I am now, right? And so I have no clue about health. I don't know anything about any of this. I know how to do pretty hair. That's what I know what to do. And I'm like, what's heavy metal point? What do you think I'm doing? Breaking thermometers and letting them suck on thermometers? Like, what are you talking
Where'd
about?
you get that from?
I know. And she's like, well, I'm not going to go very deep into this because you need to look into this for yourself. Because as it turns out, she would have gotten fired had anyone found out that she talked to me about this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And she said, some people think it's in your food. Some people think it's in water. And some people think it's in vaccines. And I rolled my eyes and I was just like, oh my gosh, she's one of those. She's one of those crazy anti-vaxxers.
Did you
crazy women? Oh yeah, I totally did. I believed what I was told to believe because I've been told my whole life that what's going on in here is fake. So therefore, like I must be crazy. So I'm listening to everyone else, right? And so I'm like, vaccines. Sure. Thank you for your input. And I leave and I just sat there and something was roiling in my gut. And I was just like, is this it? Is this what it is? Because I had to admit, I didn't know anything about it. Like it was a very humbling moment. And I was like, I don't know anything about this. So I made one grave mistake, which now I realize was not a mistake. I was like, I don't know anything about this, but I have a huge following. And I bet there's at least one mom out there who knows where to start. So I got on my stories and I said, guys, I think I figured out like maybe what might be going on with John. And very, very surface level stuff. And I said, this woman, and thank goodness I didn't say her name.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. This woman pulled me aside and said that she doesn't think that John's autistic. Well, I don't know anything about this. She said it could be in food. It could be in water. She said it could be in vaccines. I don't know anything about this. If any of you have any information on where I can start, please send it to me. And the messages that I got back turned up. You wait until I find you in your area and family. I'm running you over. Good thing your kid, oh, it's horrible. Good thing your children can't talk or your kid can't talk. Otherwise, he'd be spouting the same dangerous misinformation as his mother. You deserve to have a stupid child. Like the crap that happened. And I was like, and that's when I like broke. Like if there was like a crack, like my brain snapped and I went feral because I've always been like a source of light and happiness and goodness. I'm like, if we're going to be on social, like, let's make this world better, right? Nope. Christina went crazy and I cussed out the whole following and I was like, I'm like, you can make up lies about me. You can take my career, but you threaten my kid? Yeah. Like, and I went nuts. Yeah. And then I was like, you guys want a robot? You got it. And I peaced out and I just disappeared off of social for about a month. And then I went down the rabbit hole. And studied, came to the undeniable conclusion that that's exactly what happened to my child. That at 15 months and I don't know exactly which one it was because when I went in to get blood work done, he wasn't a priority at that time because he didn't have COVID. So my child wasn't a priority. And so I researched, and I was just like, okay. And obviously I know better now, but at the time I was like, well, I was naive. I screwed up my child for life. I broke him. This is my fault. Right. So that's how I felt. Now I realize like I had a dream actually, which I'll tell you, which was, this is when I was finally like, I'm done. Magic is real. I'm tapping into this. Right. And I'll tell you that. So so I went down the rabbit hole, started looking into all of this. And then I was like, okay, you know what? If I can even make his life and my life 1% better, I'll do anything. Yeah. And then it hit me, Christina, do you remember when you went to Europe and you came back fertile? What if just food might make it a little better? And so I went insane. I threw away all of the food storage. I emptied out everything. I threw out every spice. I threw out the pepper and the salt. I cleaned out my entire house. And I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm starting from the ground up. Started learning about soil depletion, mineral composition. Like I'm a very good student. I'm a really good student.
I love learning. I love it.
Yeah, me too.
Can I ask, do you think that the food in England isn't poisonous?
Oh, no, you got some toxic stuff. But compared to the United States, you're top tier compared to.
Really?
I was infertile for 6 years because my blood was so acidic that my uterus was killing off any sperm anytime, right? Anytime we'd have sex, like it just killed it off. And they told me like, well, it's your blood, like you'll never be able to do this, blah, blah, blah. I go to Europe, right?
Yeah.
3 days in, my friend and I are sick and we feel like we have the flu. And then we realized, are we coming down? Like it was like
Yeah.
we were coming down from drugs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're there, we're eating bread, I'm eating chocolate. I'm like, I'm vacationing, like we're doing this, right? And I came home and I had lost 20 pounds in 2 weeks from eating ice cream and chocolate and bread and like
Wow.
all of the delicious foods. And I'm sitting here
Wow.
going, wait, what?
That's
What?
insane.
It is insane. So, yes, you've
Mm.
got your stuff. You got
Okay.
plenty
We're
of
pretty,
toxic food,
yeah.
but it's nothing compared to the United States.
Okay.
Nothing compared, right?
Okay.
And it's because of crazy people like me that it's starting to get better
Yeah, this is
because we
great.
won't shut up. But yeah. So, like coming home and
Gosh.
eating your toxic food alkalined my blood to the point where I could finally get pregnant. And they told me I'd never have kids. And now I have three.
You have three.
I
Oh,
have three, and they're beautiful, and I love them, and they're everything.
yeah.
So, so I went down the rabbit hole, did all
Yeah.
that, cleaned out my fridge, cleaned all that, and I was like, if I'm going to do this, we're starting from the ground up. And there was a farmer's market. And I was like, I'm going to go to the farmer's market and I'm going to find heirloom fruits and veggies, things that have never been genetically modified, like whatever.
Yep.
My husband and I, he's never been so mad at me in my life.
Yeah.
Like we were fighting like you would not believe. He's like, you've literally gone insane. I know you lost your career. I know all this, but you're going insane. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm done. So we go there and I see this little woman. I see this
Oh.
little woman and she had wrinkles, but she had no pores. I remember looking at her being
Oh,
like, you're
wow.
so beautiful. Like, how are you just a porcelain old
Wow.
woman? Like, she was
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
I loved her.
Oh.
And I was physically pulled to her. Like, I literally felt it was like a hook around my middle pulled towards this woman.
Yeah.
And I went up to her and I was like, because she had little homemade products, like goat milk products, and she had some veggies and stuff.
Oh.
And I was like, ooh, what do you have? Like, what are these salves? What are these lotions? And she's
Yeah.
like, I make them. She's like, I use herbs and da da da. And I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And she stops and she looks me right in the eye, which was very intimidating,
Yeah.
right? She's this little old woman and I'm huge. I'm almost 6 feet tall. And I'm just like, oh,
Wow.
there's knowledge, there's wisdom in this woman. And she looks at me and she's like, why are you here? I was like, what do you mean, why am I here? It's a farmer's market. And she's like,
Yeah.
don't play with me. Why are you here? And
Mm.
I was like, I don't know what to say. I just got destroyed for saying the word vaccine and
Yeah.
having a question.
Yeah.
And
Makes
I
you
just
now
looked,
gonna hold on to your truth. Mm.
oh, it was terrifying. And I just looked at her and I was like, um, I've come to the conclusion that my son was injured by something, and I am trying to learn how to cook and to make clean food to see if I can help him. And she looks over because John's running around. He's upending tables. He's knocking things off of people's stuff. And my husband's running after him, like, please stop, right? And she goes, is that him? I said, yeah. And she said, she looks back at me and dead in the eyes, serious. She's like, he was vaccine injured, wasn't he? And I was like, yes, I think so. She's like, hold on. She gets her little crochet purse and she pulls out an empty envelope, right? Because she had, Mary Poppins purse. And she's like, give him this smoothie, and writes me a recipe. She's like, give him this smoothie twice a day, every day for the next 2 weeks. It should help his erratic behavior. And
Wow.
I'm like,
Amazing woman.
yeah, I'm like, okay, who are you? Like, what? Right.
Mm.
And I went home and I was like, okay, like, let's give it a try.
Yeah, try.
1 week. Why not? And it was blueberries. It was like some it was like some seaweed. Like it's the medical median's detox
Yeah.
smoothie. I found that out later. And so
Okay.
I was like,
Okay.
okay. So I made this smoothie. And 1 week later, I will never forget this. This is the moment everything changed. 1 week later, it's Sunday morning, and I feel a little tap on my shoulder. And I hear for the first time in 3 years, Mama. No one in my house had called me mom in 3 years. And I hear, Mama, get up. Wake up. Food, please. And my husband shot straight up and he's like, did he just talk? And I burst into tears. And my child, who has been so
Goosebumps.
violent, I know, so violent for the last 3 years, who had no empathy and dead shark eyes, suddenly I can see his soul again. And he grabs my face and he goes, Mom, what's wrong? And that was it. And I was like, I'm done. And I
Yeah.
reached over and I grabbed her business card. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning. And I call her up. And it turns out she was only like a couple blocks away from me. We lived right next to each other. Her name was Alicia. And I was like, my child is talking. She's like, yeah, you ready to learn more?
Oh,
And I was
amazing
like,
mentor. That's
okay,
incredible.
yeah. So her name was Alicia. She was 73 and she became my best friend. And I went over to her house like every other day. And in 6 months, she must have taught me 20 years worth of stuff. She taught me how to cook. She taught me how to jar. She taught me how to know the
Oh,
difference between like real food, fake food. She's the one who
that's the
encouraged
best
me to,
learning.
right?
Oh,
It was amazing.
yeah,
And she's the one who encouraged me to become an herbalist.
yeah.
And she was the one who looked at me and she's like, and she said this to me. She's like, when are you gonna stop ignoring the magic that you have? And we eventually, a year later, I only knew her for about a year and a half, because she ended up getting sick with pneumonia, and all of her family didn't, according to her, they just weren't into it like she was, other than to like her daughter and her granddaughter. Anyway, so they took her to the hospital, and the regulation was still, we're going to treat for COVID instead of,
Yeah.
other things. And COVID, the drugs that they had putting into people put more fluid into your body. And she was already drowning in pneumonia. And so she called me and she said, because she had all these goats, and she said, Christina, I think I'm going to die. I'm like, you're not going to die. You can't die. Remember, you're supposed to move. Because I had just found my property. She was like, you're supposed to move up here. I'm going to make you a little cottage. And I'm going to take care of you till you're 100 years old. Like, you're not dying. And she says, Christina, I'm going to die, but I need to know, will you take my goats? And I'm like, of course I'll
Oh,
take your goats,
oh
but
my
you're not going to die. You're not going to die. And then the next morning I woke up and I was like, Alicia died. And I knew it. And her family called me a couple hours later and they were like, our mom died. But the last thing she said was, you better give my goats to Christina.
Did you take the
You
goat?
don't, and she's like, you don't have to take them. I was like, oh, you better give me my goats. Like, those are mine. So overnight I became a goat farmer without knowing. And she ended up leaving her recipes and stuff to me and my
No.
business partner. And half of the salves that we have are her original recipes, and we still have them, and we've like shared them out to the world.
It's
And it
really
became the
beautiful stuff.
foundation. Yeah, it became the foundation of Rocky Red, which is my apothecary, and my goats are the milk that we use to make the
No
lotions and the
way.
soaps. And yep. And so it's been magical because she saved my
No.
kid, but she saved me too.
52.
Yeah. And so I
What an
think about her all the
awakening.
time,
That is
and
just incredible.
it was crazy. And so it's been 5 years since, and I did midwifery study. I became an herbalist. I've like all of these things. And then it was about a year and a half ago where I finally sat there and I was just like, I'm done. I'm not crazy. How many times have I seen in the last few years where my intuition was right? I'm
Mm.
not crazy. And so I listened to the White Witch podcast, right?
Yeah.
And I was like listening to it quietly. I was like, does anyone know I'm listening to witches talking? Right? Like, right. And she interviewed a girl named Jennifer Lane who
Mhm.
wrote The Wheel. And I
Mhm.
was like, I'm going to order it. I'm going to order this book. And I bought the book, and I literally was in my closet because I didn't even want my husband to know, like, what is Clint going to think if he knows that I'm studying witchcraft? Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to hell. I just know it, but at least I'll be happy. So I'm like in my closet reading this book, just like
Yeah.
learning about witches. And as I got to the end of it, like through the whole thing, my heart is just pounding out of my chest the whole time. And I'm like, how can something that
Feels so
makes me
right.
feel so good be evil?
Mhm.
I am a good person. I've always been a
Yeah.
good person. All I've
That's
ever
really
wanted was to
hard with your
help.
background as well. It's like,
Very,
but
very
yeah.
hard. Yep. And so I got into it, and I finally, at the end of the book, I went out to Clint and I was like, Clint, I'm going to study witchcraft. And he's like, all right.
Okay.
He's like, sure, babe. And I was like, does this make you feel weird? He's like, babe, I've known you were weird since the moment I met you. It's part of your charm. And I'm like, thank you. So I started reading. And the one thing I concluded was everything is witchcraft. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Like, and then when I learned what the pentagram finally was, I was like, this is
Yeah.
beautiful. How is this evil? And then seeing
Yeah.
how all of the things that are representation of women, the big
Yeah.
bad wolf, the snake with
Yeah.
Eve, like all of this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no. And then looking how the words changed, and
Yeah.
then learning about the witch wound. And I'm reading this and I'm getting tingles all up and down my spine because I'm like, I had a past life. I had several. I can feel this. I've had this confirmed sense. But I was like, I can feel this. No wonder I'm so scared to learn this, because had I been
Yeah.
who I am today,
Yeah.
like everything I'm into, I'd have been burned at the stake or hung or drowned for. And so
Yeah.
I learned about the witch wound and I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. And
Yeah.
more than anything, what it did for me was it helped me have compassion for everyone who hurt me. Because suddenly I can
That's
look at that woman.
beautiful. Yeah.
Well, it's once you know, you can't not know, right? And so I
Yeah.
look at that, I still don't know who she is. And I look at her in my brain and I'm just like, oh, you're hurting so much
Yeah.
because hurt people hurt people. And then I looked at the beauty industry and I'm looking at them all and I'm like, you guys aren't actually mean people. You're being poisoned.
Yeah.
It's a toxic industry. Your amygdala and your pineal gland and everything are literally calcified because you're huffing chemicals. This is not your fault.
Yeah.
This is not your fault.
Yeah.
And then even looking at my own family, I'm just looking at it, I'm like, you're just so scared. Like you're so
Yeah.
scared. And when
The
people are
awareness
scared,
it brings to you. That's
exactly.
the
And I'm like,
biggest gift.
that's the biggest thing. And I was just like, all of my anger evaporated and my resentment and my fear. And it's come
Beautiful.
back. Like I'm in priestess training right now with Kate Murphy, if you know
Mm.
who she is. And
I have heard about this.
she's,
Yeah.
you would love her. You too. Like, I don't even know you two personally, but I'm like, you should be friends, like you two. But I'm in priestess training with her, and you should have seen the look on my family's face. They're just like, oh, Christina's completely gone off the deep end. But the one thing they can't deny is I'm nicer and happier and lighter and
Grounded.
healthier than I've ever been. And so it's kind of fun because I'm confusing everyone. I'm like, yeah, here I am in my evil witchcraft as I'm happier and healthier than anyone else in the family. Yeah, I must be doing something wrong.
So you really dealt with the wish wound head
Oh,
on,
hard, hard,
and you went
hard.
through the darkness, but beautiful darkness because it really did
Yeah,
transform you. So you can look back
yeah,
at that with a blessing, and it's.
yeah. Yeah, it has brought so much light, and I've just realized like everything is magic. And when you realize what magic really is,
Yeah.
it's not like, it's Hollywood has made it like, oh, it sparks out of a wand. And I'm like, I mean, I bet you could really do that, but everything is magic. This is a cup of cacao. Do you know how
Yeah.
much magic is in this? And
Yeah,
then the
exactly.
science, and then the
Exactly.
science, and then
Yeah.
the medicine, and then the all of that. And then I'm like, now let's talk about the holy properties of cacao and what it does for your heart, you know? And I'm like, life gets so much more colorful. It's
Yeah.
everything is silly. Everything is fun. Everything is pretty.
Oh,
Everything matters,
everything
right?
is connected.
Everything is connected. Everything, everything's just so much more precious, right? And like everything has purpose and everything has meaning. And I think the
Yeah.
number one thing everyone's missing is meaning.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, the point
Everyone's just
is
following each other and doing exactly the same thing.
exactly
And it's a
trying to
really
be
sad thing.
unique,
Yeah.
trying to be unique by following each other. Yeah.
And it's really sad, but it's their
Yeah,
path.
totally. And I think that was a big one for me is realizing I can't make anyone do
Can't
anything.
wake people up.
No, you can't. And I tried. And then to realize, oh, I'm like that's a disservice by me trying to force people to, like, you don't
Yeah.
have to hurt. No, 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 no.
No.
The
Just
only way
mirror.
that, yes, is just be
Mirror.
you.
Yeah.
Just show it.
Yeah.
Just be seen.
Yeah.
And by being
Yeah.
seen, that helps people, but you
When someone
can't do it
messages me
for
on
them.
Instagram and they're like, "Oh, I've changed this," or "I've just done this," or "You've inspired me to
Hmm.
do this," that's everything.
I know. I know. And you screenshot it and you keep it in a little
Yeah,
folder
I've got
for
a
the
little
bad
folder,
days.
and I'm
Yeah,
like,
the bad
"Oh,
days, right?
that's a
I'm
love
making a
ever
difference.
folder."
Yes.
I
It's
am
the
nice.
I'm doing okay. Yes.
I have one of those folders.
I do. On my bad days folder. Yeah. There you go. It's quite the story. It'll be a great book someday.
It's a
Speaking of
great
books, I
book.
love your books.
Oh,
I
thank
love your
you very
books so
much.
much. They're
Thank
so
you.
good and they're
Thank you. How did you
beautiful.
find me then?
I don't remember. Like, I was secretly, I literally made a
Like,
fake
was I your
account.
closet like
You were one of my
secret?
first closet. Yes, you were one of my first little witches. And the thing is, too, is
Mm,
like looking into this, I'm like, guys, you can turn anything evil. It's all intention, all
yeah,
intention, anything and
yeah,
everything. I mean,
yeah,
Christianity, it's all about being Christ-like and living like Christ. And yet, I felt more un-Christ-like attitude than from the people who were pagans, you know? So it's
yeah, exactly.
anything,
Yeah,
excuse me, anything can be evil. It just depends on the wielder,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so, like, as I'm looking and I'm finding people, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, you're all so cute. You're all so light. And I made a fake Instagram account because I couldn't have people know
No,
on
you
my public
didn't.
account that I was following these witches. And then finally, I was like, screw this. I deleted that account. And then on my main account, I was like, I
Wow.
love Emma. She's like Molly Weasley, and she's so freaking cute. And I love her house, and I want to pet her dog. Like,
He's down there asleep.
and your relationship with your kids. I mean, I'm not going to assume that I know,
Thank
but
you.
like your daughter and your relationship, I have
I'm
one
very
daughter,
blessed.
and I'm
I'm
like,
very blessed.
that's all I want. Like,
Yeah.
oh, like you're
And I've
setting
never
like the
pushed it on
standard.
Holly. I've never
No.
asked her. She's
Mm-mm.
just like, Mom, I want to do this, or show me
Mm.
more, or yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And your story, like all of it, even though like our lives, it was very parallel. You were in fashion, I was in beauty.
Yeah.
It's the same. You know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about. Like
Yeah.
it rings true.
Yeah.
And then finding, you know what? I would rather be weird and
Yeah.
happy. I would rather
Yeah.
be weird and happy and healthy and whole.
Yeah.
And
I was working in
yeah.
editorial photography, and when I
Yeah.
started sharing on social media, this is what I also do in my private life. I just thought,
Mm-hmm.
see if people are interested.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And so many people, friends, editors, makeup artists, hairdressers are like, no, can't be friends with you, can't be
Can't be
associated
friends.
with you.
No.
But what I found out is as I started growing, or they started watching, they had like other fake accounts. They just like dip into my stories or
Uh-huh.
watch, and I was like, it's okay,
Yeah.
show them love. It's not gonna bother my bubble. They wanted to
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
It's I have felt that, and the amount of apologies. Have you gotten so
Yeah,
many
I've had
apologies?
apologies. It was
Dozens.
beautiful. This woman came up to me face to face and she said, I'm really sorry that I said
Oh.
I can't, don't know you anymore. And I was like, it's fine. It's just your
Mm-hmm.
path you had to go through. You had to literally see the evidence for yourself that I'm not
Mm-hmm.
this scary person boiling
Nope.
children and, doing
No.
things you think I'm doing because I'm not.
It's like all the witches, like all the pagans, we're gonna go eat whoever is hurting kids. Like it's not the kids, it's the
Not the kids.
pedophiles. We're going after
Yeah,
you. Like,
yeah,
and
exactly.
just there's just the sense of
Yeah.
community. And like I brought like the
Yeah.
will of the year into my own family
Yes.
and just and everyone they're just like,
Nice.
Christina, you're weird. I'm like, yeah, but I'm fun.
Yeah.
Like
I'm
I'm way
happy. I'm
fun. I'm so
peace. My
fun.
wellness is great. I don't have
Yeah.
anxiety or depression. I'm great.
My
You
yeah,
know?
my body responded. My body, it's crazy. It's like I removed the
Yeah.
fear,
Mm.
remove all of that. Like, and it took a lot of work. It's so much work, but you have to get through it. And then
Yeah.
suddenly my body slims down and my skin clears up and my hair thickens up. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. It's magic.
Magic.
This is magic. But that's really what it is. Like in the end,
It
I
is.
think the magic is just peace and healing.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's so simple.
So with the women around you, like in your industry or, with
Mhm.
clients or, people in your life, do you see the witch wound within them?
Oh, and everybody. In
Yeah.
everybody.
Me
And
too.
it's funny how it sneaks up on me still sometimes.
How does it sneak up with
Like,
you?
oh yeah, like, you'll have a
Yeah.
conversation with your mom, or you'll have a conversation with, a friend that you've had since high school, and then it creeps up in a conversation and you're just like, "Oh." But the difference is I see it now. I don't think it's about never hurting and never having wounds and never, I think it's about recognizing it for what it is with gratitude and then leaning back on your tools, right? Like your
Yeah.
little
The whole
toolkit of things
station.
that help, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, oh, my nervous system is freaking the crap out. Cool. Let's go do some breathing. Let's shake a little bit. Let's, do all my
Yeah.
witchy woo of giving myself
Yeah.
hugs, like,
Exactly.
and,
Exactly. I still have a
and,
fear that I'm going to get mocked and, it's
mm-hmm,
not safe for me. Or
yeah,
sometimes I'll share some on social media and they'll literally pace the house going, I'm going to get found
mm-hmm,
out. Someone's going to have a go at me, and I think it's
yep,
going. But we have to keep stepping through that fear.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we're the chain breakers, it's
Yeah.
one thing that's kind of been bugging me a little bit lately, and I think it's just because I'm finally not angry for the first time in my life, because I've been a very angry person deep down my
Yeah.
whole life because there's something wrong with me, right? There's
Yeah.
something wrong with me,
Yeah. This is a
and
really
that's going to
exciting
make you
time for
mad.
you.
Yes.
So
And
perfect.
And but what I'm starting to notice is I appreciate how everyone's like, oh, the witch wound and the patriarchy. And I'm like, I see you, but you're not making a difference by wallowing in this and saying, oh, it's your fault. It's your fault. No, 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 no. Go, oh, that's why. Cool. Let's do the exact opposite. Right? It's like walk. If you want to make a difference, whining about it. I'm sorry, everyone, if you're still dealing with your witch wound, forgive me. I'm a bit aggressive sometimes. But if you're whining about it instead of being about it, like stop talking about it and be about it. Be the light. Be the woman who steps into herself. Be the woman who's
and lift others up.
unapologetically. Yes.
You know, not
Instead of
tearing
going, oh,
women
it's
down.
because of your patriarchy. It's like,
Yeah.
we get
There's
it.
a lot of women tearing each other down.
Yes.
And
And
a
I'm
lot
like,
of
you
women
do
holding
realize you're
back.
like,
Yeah.
it's
I'm like,
like,
it's all gonna have to come back on you.
yes,
You know,
yes,
just hug someone, tell them they look beautiful, or go past
yes.
someone and say, wow, you look incredible today, and smile
Mm-hmm,
at them as a woman. You know, it's
mm-hmm,
amazing. That's
mm-hmm.
magic.
That's magic. And it really does make magic. Like, how many times has that
Yeah.
happened in your life where one person
Yeah.
said one thing that
Yeah, it makes your
seemed
day.
off the cuff?
Yeah.
Yes. And it was just like, oh, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
And
okay.
normally you always find that when you hear someone like that, you really need it at that
Yeah.
time. You're going through something and then this random stranger be like, oh, I
Mhm.
like your hair. Or you look
Well, and
nice.
it's every time you think something nice, like I've started doing this. If I think something nice, I'm going to say it out loud.
Yeah.
Right. And it's because like there's a reason that person popped into your brain.
Yeah.
Every time you're like, oh, I should call that person. And then you don't. And then you
Yeah.
find out why. Right.
Yeah.
Anytime this randomness pops into your brain, Kate said something on our very first call training. A girl who's in the container was like, how do I know that this isn't all just my imagination?
Oh.
Right. How do I know that I'm not crazy? And that was like, oh, she's asking my question because I have a huge imagination. I've always thought dragons were real. I just think that they're way smarter than us and they're hiding in the mountains. Or because the biology, the
Big
science
berries
brain
are
in me is
real in the
like,
garden. Yeah.
they're all real. It's all real. And she's like, how do I know it's just not my imagination? And Kate's like, it is your imagination.
Mm.
It is your imagination. And your imagination is real. Your imagination is
Magic.
how you can see past what's right in front of you. And then it made me think of Dumbledore. Of course it's happening
Of
in your
course,
head,
it's Harry
Harry.
Potter.
It's Harry Potter. I love it. Of course it's happening in your head, Harry, but why should that mean that it's not real? And that was kind of my okay. It's all
Love you
real.
live by Harry Potter quotes. Oh my,
I
that's
know I love it.
hilarious.
They're still my favorite. Like
I'm
I
going
love it.
there. I'm going there on the 12th of February. I cannot wait.
Stop.
You
Oh, it's
know,
gonna be so
I
fun.
love
I'm
it.
so happy for you.
Me too.
I loved it when I went and did all that. I went on a
Yeah.
Muggle tour. You got to take a Muggle
A
tour.
Muggle tour.
Yeah, they're Muggle tours. Look it up. I don't
Oh,
remember what it's called anymore, but we went and this cute little girl who is as fandom as you can imagine, she's
I
all decked
love
out, walked
that.
us around London to all the places that inspired J.K. Rowling and
Oh, I
like
love
it was fun.
that.
Yeah,
That's
it was fun.
cool. That's
You'll like it.
cool. Very, very cool. So, what is
There
your
you go.
advice for women out there who are not, I mean, you have literally changed your career as well in the
Yeah.
face of being judged and losing people. So, if there's a woman
Hmm.
out there who really does want to not only share her gifts, her weird gifts or the weirdness about her,
Hmm.
but wants to change her career completely, but she's scared of the witch wound.
Oh, I it's a prerequisite.
Mhm.
Fear, terror. I went through quite that last week because I was like, I'm done. I'm going to be seen. I'm going to show up exactly as I am
Yeah.
in all my glory,
Yeah.
right? And the terror that I felt for the last week, I was like, where is this coming from? And it was like,
Yeah.
it was crazy. The fear that you're feeling is the prerequisite to the life that you want. There's not a single story out there, not one,
Yeah.
where the person did not have to hit rock bottom, whether
Yeah.
financially, physically, emotionally,
I love a
spiritually.
rock
Like,
bottom. I look
yes,
back, I'm about to be 49 and I'm like, you know, my rock bottoms, I've had many, but they are
many rock
beautiful
bottoms.
gifts. Beautiful
Yes.
gifts. I don't
Yes.
really
Well,
want any more when I'm in my 50s. I just want
yeah,
peace.
we're
I just
good.
want
Can
to
we just
be.
We're
I
good
should
now,
like
right?
cruise along now, but
I think you earned it at that
I
point,
think I have.
right? You're like, I'm in my sage mode now, right? Like we're good.
Yeah,
Everyone else, you
like
do the
chill
work.
out.
I'm good. Yes. But it's upon rock bottom that mountaintops are made,
Yeah,
right?
that's
And
good.
so if you feel fear,
Mhm.
that's the moment
Yeah,
that you can either go, oh, I wish I would have pushed through, or
yeah,
that was the moment that everything changed.
yeah,
And the fear and there's a difference, right? There's a difference between, oh my gosh, I'm in danger fear,
yeah.
or this is
And
not smart fear. There's something wrong fear.
yeah, it's
That's not what we're
completely
talking about.
different.
Listen to that. But the
Yeah,
fear of what if I'm going to get judged? What if I'm making the biggest
yeah.
mistake of my
It's
life?
that busy
What
head.
if
It's
it's
that,
the busy head?
yeah, I'm
Yes.
useless. I'm too old, or all this
Yes.
stuff. Yeah.
All of it.
When you're in that, just go
Yes.
through. Just go
You
through
have to.
that.
And you can't go over it. You can't go under it. You can't walk around it. You have
Yeah.
to go right
Right.
into that chasm. But it's
Yeah.
in the dark. We were
Yeah.
talking about that. It's the dark.
Yeah.
And there's a reason they call it the dark night of the soul, right?
Yeah.
We've been taught to be scared of the dark,
Yeah.
but it's the dark where all life comes from, right? Everything comes
Yeah.
from darkness, and darkness is not evil.
No,
Darkness is like a seed, right? Like a
it's the
seed is
healing.
exactly. A seed has to go in the dark, in the
Yeah.
cold, where it can break apart before it can
Yeah.
come out and be seen in the light, right? And it
Yeah.
has to shoot roots down first before it can even come
Yeah.
out of the soil, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're scared, good.
Yeah.
Congratulations. I'm proud of
Well
you.
done.
Don't stop.
Yeah.
Don't stop. And know that like attracts like, right? Karma. What you put out is what you get back. It's the law of the universe. We all know this, regardless of your religion, your upbringing. We all know that there's a
Yeah.
balance in all things. So if it's this scary and this hard,
Yeah. It's
it's
gonna be
going to be
amazing.
good. And
Yes.
that light on the other side. So I'm at this point now where I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
this sucks so bad. Oh, where's my prize? Like you'll notice that this is a pattern that happens again and again and again, and you can anticipate it. And instead, you'll be able to alchemize that fear in the future, but you have to do it first. You have to experience it first. So you'll be able to go, oh, I'm scared. Oh, yay.
Yeah.
I'm still scared, but I know that
The
this is going to
universe is
be
gonna
good.
hug me on the other side. And also,
Exactly,
we're here to
exactly.
grow. If you ever meet someone who's
Yes.
never been in the darkness, I'm like really shocked and think, wow, your life's so boring.
How
It's
boring.
bit- you,
Yeah.
like, wow, you're wasting your life because you're here to grow and expand. That's why we're
Yeah.
here. That's why we've chosen to come here.
Yeah.
We're wasting
Yes.
it if we're not facing the fears or
Yes.
trying things.
And that's the thing is I think most of the time, well, it's just proof of the witch wound. We're so scared because we think we're going to die,
Yeah,
right?
safe. Yeah.
You're not going to die. You're going to be okay, right?
And also, well, unless if any of your friends leave you,
Yeah.
then it's meant to fall away.
Yes.
It's not a big deal.
hmm
If
And
your
it's okay to
family
be
judge
sad
you,
about
it's
it.
fine. They're still your family, and they'll just
Mhm.
watch and they'll see their own evidence from your growth. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter.
Well, and like calls to like, right? So if
Yeah,
you put out that you're being real
yeah,
and you're standing in your magic,
yeah,
it's going to shock you how quickly all
yeah,
the magical people come out of the work, right? What you put out is what you get back,
yeah,
period. So if you
yeah,
put out, I'm going to be real. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be a magical little fairy. Then a whole
yeah,
bunch of magical little fairies are going to come out
yeah,
and you're not going to be alone. You are not as
yeah,
alone as you think. You are already alone. You're alone because you're not being honest,
yeah,
right? Once you are honest, you will never be alone again,
yeah,
right? And so the loneliness you feel is you put it on yourself, which means you can take it off. Like you have all the power. You just have to have a little bit of insane courage. And it takes a lot of courage.
yeah.
And it's so worth it in the end. And it gets easier, right? Wisdom comes
It
from
does.
integration, from
Yeah,
experience.
yeah, and age.
And age, yes. And you have to age. You have to have time. You have to go through these things.
Yeah,
But like, you don't want to die without any good stories. There's no
no,
like
it's
every
so
good
boring.
story, right? Stories are boring without the trial. So just go, oh, this is going to be a good book,
Yeah.
right? This is going to be a really good book.
Really exciting chapter.
Yeah.
So tell everybody your business. What do you actually make and sell so people can actually, obviously I'm going to put it all into the caption below, but
You're
just
wonderful.
tell us what you,
Well, I'm just letting you know for all of your listeners in UK and across the seas, we're working on trying to get past all the borders because our stuff is food, right? Like it's food or
yeah,
medicine. And so we're still having issues
okay.
getting it out of the United States.
Hmm.
But just DM us and we'll tell you how to make stuff because we don't have proprietary blends. No such thing. If I see proprietary blend,
That's
I call bullshit
beautiful.
and I don't use it, you know?
Yeah, that's
So
great.
thank you. So
That's
we do
something.
tinctures, soaps,
Mm.
salves, all the medicines you need. Like you don't need your nasty NyQuil cough syrup. That stuff's poison. You need some honey, some thyme, some fenugreek, and some lemon balm. That's what you need, right? So we just made everything that we needed for ourselves. So for example,
Mhm.
I had always had an irregular period and horrible cramps and horrible hormone stuff, right? And then right before Alicia died, she and I developed a tincture called Balance that sets the whole endocrine system back in line with each other. And I've had
Wow.
blissful periods since. I'm perfectly regular, no
Wow.
cramping, no migraines. It's just
Mhm.
food. And then my business partner has raging ADHD, which I think is a superpower. I think
Superpower.
ADHD is a superpower, but every superpower has a kryptonite, right? So we have to learn how to use your power so it can be awesome instead of
Yeah.
taking control of your life.
Yeah.
So she, at one point, we were about a year into business, and she like was having a really hard time focusing. She goes up to her husband and she's like, "Babe, I think I just need to get on Adderall. Like, I think I need to get on this because I can't focus, and this is just killing me." And he looks at her and he's like, "Isn't that a little hypocritical of you?" And she's like, "What?" And he's like, "Just make something." And she
Yeah.
was like, "I could just make something." So
Yeah.
she developed we've each kind of like half the formulas I came up with, half she came up with, and then a few we did together. This one was done by her, and it's our number one product. And so she made this formula that literally balance out ADHD, depression, anxiety, and stress, like panic attacks.
Wow.
And we've had confirmed 8 different people so far have confirmed that they got completely off of Adderall, Zofran, all of these highly addictive
Yeah.
substances for those issues, right?
Yeah.
In a matter of months. And they've been on it for 10 to 15 years each. And
Wow.
it's just food. And that's
Yeah.
it. It's just herbs. It's just herbs and a little alcohol, a
Picture.
couple drops a day. Isn't that amazing? And so she never had to get on that. She's able to focus. Whenever I feeling anxiety, I take that and within 2 seconds, I'm like, oh, we're good. Because they're nervines, right? It balances the nervous
Yeah.
system. So that's what we do. It's just everything we made for us first. Like,
Mm.
Natalie, I really need to sleep. Great. Let's make a honey that'll help you sleep well. Me,
Yeah.
my hormones are out of whack and I have no libido. Great. Let's make something to fix that. And every issue we've been able to treat, can't use that word, right? It's a medical term, but been able to
Oh.
support, treat, help permanently with food, with herbs. And so our
Yeah.
stuff is mostly tonics made from like raw honey and herbs. And then we have our salves, which came from Alicia. We still do her same recipe because they're magic. They're so good. And then we have some goat milk lotions, goat milk soaps, and then a couple of teas, like for helping the
Oh,
gut and things like that.
lovely.
So we focused on like the 5 major things that people have issues with, which is inflammation, gut problems, right? Sleep, hormones, and mental health. And
Yeah.
so each of our things, we focused on that. And we just hit 3 years old and we're like exploding.
That's
And it's
really
just
good.
us in we just have a little warehouse
That's
and we just,
amazing.
yeah. So I
If
got to,
anyone's got like an issue, they have a consultation with you online or
yeah,
chat to you and
yeah, just
if they're
DM
in the
us.
UK, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Even in the UK, like we have so many people out in the UK and New Zealand. New Zealand, for some reason, they're like, we want
Mhm.
it. And we're like,
Yeah.
sorry, it's the
Yes.
government.
Yeah.
But just DM us and we'll tell you how to do it. I'll tell you how to do it. You know, it might be a little pricey to get all the herbs, but it's
Yeah, but
cheaper than
it's
drugs.
yeah.
It's cheaper than drugs and it's
Yeah.
so simple. It's
Yeah.
so easy. The reason we're doing well is like anyone could copy our recipes. You really could,
Mhm.
but people don't want to, right? So I'm like, that's fine. Let me do it. I'll make it for you, right? Like I'll
Yeah.
make it for you, but you could if you needed to. So our people across borders and across the seas were just like, hey, get this, get this, get this, get this. You're good. And one thing we're
Very
focusing on
good.
this year is to do our education, to start educating, be like, okay, This is what you're going to do.
Oh,
And we're
amazing.
going to offer all of that for free,
Yeah.
other than like we'll do a few master courses we might charge
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
But we're also starting a podcast this year
Yeah.
too, where
Incredible.
we're just like, hey, here's what we're going to do. Like, it's
Yeah.
not, health is not hard. Health is actually very simple. It's just intimidating because you're not familiar. Anything that's not familiar is intimidating.
Yeah. And we're
And with
trained, we have to go to
familiarity,
professional, we have to go to, down a certain
yes,
route.
but
So
you don't, because believe it or not, I love my doctors and my nurses. Thank you guys so much for what
yeah,
you do. You
I
guys are
don't mind.
seriously the best.
Yeah.
They don't know everything. And isn't that beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Like, thank you for when my guts are falling out because I got in a car wreck. Thank you for putting me back together. But then it's time to go home and let
Yeah.
the body do what the body is going to do with proper nutrition.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you can't have sugar. If you want a
Yeah.
brownie, have a freaking brownie. Just make sure it's a real brownie. That's it. Just a real brownie,
Yeah.
and your body will
Yeah.
know what to do with it,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So, like, it really is that simple. People, we've been taught that it's not simple. We've been taught that it's complicated, and it's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Amazing. Your magic is beautiful.
Oh,
Absolutely
thank you.
beautiful.
So is
Really, really
yours.
lovely. So do you have any last message you would like to leave this with?
No, I just want to thank you. You were one of the ones that helped me have the bravery. Like, I know getting on social is hard for you. You've mentioned it several times,
Yeah.
like being on video. It's really scary.
Yeah.
Being seen
Yeah.
is really scary. But you having the courage to do that helped me a lot. And it's just, like social media can be such a curse and it's such a blessing. Like, I've been
Yeah.
able to meet
I'm blessed
so
with
many
like a beautiful
amazing
community.
people.
Yeah. Beautiful
Yes.
people.
Yes.
It's
And
great.
it's because of you. Like, I have a few that I've like met on social, and I'm like, thank God for Instagram that I can meet with these people who are so aligned. And so I just want to thank you and like encourage you, please don't stop.
I'm not
Keep
gonna
doing
say.
your thing. Like, you're just such a light, and it's so nice. Like, you're helping people realize that like witchcraft doesn't mean long black nails unless you want it to. That's great, right? But it's literally just, it's just be you,
Yeah.
but have fun with it,
Yeah.
and practice the art of noticing the fun, sparkly, magical things that happen every single day, and do everything with intention. And you were the one who helped me go, oh, actually, like, I am doing it right. And there's no formula. It's just
Yeah.
you. And then your book, The
Everyone's
Witch's Way
different.
Home. Yeah, like that. I was reading it. I was like, yeah, this is great. Like, this is so good. So I just want to encourage everyone, if you haven't read her books, definitely start with
Great.
your soul's path, because it's simple, right? It's really simple. It's like your good, like, little dip. It's your little dip your toes in kind of thing. And then when you're ready to go to like next stage, then that book, like, they're safe. So if anyone feels like, I really want to get into this, but I still don't feel safe, these are like great, safe little places to start.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not scary like you think it is, but it's not. It's actually
It's not
beautiful and
scary.
fun.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're a pleasure. Thank you
Oh,
so
thank you. Thank you for letting me share my story.
much. You're welcome.
I appreciate it, and I hope it helps someone.